Chris, hi. It's a pleasure to have you with us today.
Hi, thank you. Nice to be here.
How have you been?
Yeah, I've been doing well in spite of things, I'd say. Yeah, we're doing fine.
Wonderful. Chris, before we dive into the discussion today that we've planned, right?
Mm.
It'll be lovely if we can have you to introduce yourself and give us a view in terms of so many exciting things that you've been a part of. It'll be helpful for our audience to understand more about you.
Sure thing. Right. So Chris Yerbey is my name. I'm originally from actually a southern state in the U.S., Alabama, which is where I'm back visiting right now. I went to college here. I moved on. I've done set up several companies over the years. In fact, I'm working now on my seventh business, so I'm what you would call a serial entrepreneur. Currently, my project is a business called TradeFox, which connects buyers and sellers of recyclables globally. And we do that through providing a business intelligence product, which it essentially focuses on the reputations of companies and how they trade, how they transact with each other. Those can be questions about, do they honor their commitments? Do they ship, good quality? Are they fair in their dealings? These are things that are not found in a credit report, for example, and
Right.
that's essentially how our product works, and that's our main focus now for about 8 years.
That is amazing, Chris. Chris, 2020 has been a very, very difficult year, right? And not just say
Yeah,
for say one or two countries, but I think the world at large, right? Everybody's faced a tremendous amount of pain in the process, right? How has it been for
absolutely.
you personally and as a business?
Well, our company is based, I guess I should say, in Amsterdam. So we've had some issues. We're now on our third wave of infection in Amsterdam. So as you might be aware, Europe has not gotten off easy, especially our part of Europe. So there've been a lot of, on a personal level, a lot of lockdowns, a lot of restrictions, in order to keep everybody safe. It's understandable. From a business perspective, it actually it's kind of like in a way that Zoom has increased their business because people are now using the product more due to COVID. That's been the impact on our business as well, because we are a platform that connects businesses globally without the need for meeting in person. So we provide a lot of features and products around that. So in fact, the very unfortunate problem that we have in the world has actually caused a shift in the mind. Actually, maybe I should say another way. It's caused people to look for a digital option for doing things virtually instead of in reality. So flying back and forth, meeting in person, handshakes, conferences, etc. And so that's, of course, just happens to be what our business is, and we're doing our best to support the industry, which was really, I'll be honest with you, as soon as this thing hit, we were all quite shocked we were not really sure. I think everybody's uncertain if global trade was just going to come to a standstill, and we did the best we could to try to jump in immediately and help out in every way we could.
This is something that I would want to come back to, towards, this is a point that I would want to cover a little later, right? But
Mm,
I think what you're doing is becomes so much more important, right? Given the, the complexity that, all of us been through,
yeah,
I think, and, honoring and dishonoring, must have become so much more prevalent, right? But this is a point that I would come to a little later.
sure.
Chris, before we get into specifics, right?
Mm,
Give us a sense of the global, metal recyclable landscape, right?
okay.
Something that you're involved in very, very closely. What are some of the key, some of the key industries that contributes to most of, most of, uh, in terms of the recyclable trade, what are some of the most critical industries, and
Absolutely.
across which countries?
Sure. I mean, so basically, I think the way to see this at a high level, I mean, of course, well, first of all, we should say we work in a $250 billion industry. I mean, the global trade of recyclables is a very big number. It's something that a lot of people don't really consider that is even an industry, to be honest with you.
Right.
People don't really understand that over 55 to $60 billion a year even moves across borders, and they're
Right.
flowing out on the backhaul in containers, mostly coming back in from countries like Europe, in around in Europe and in the US and Australia. They're coming back on the backhaul where, great goods are manufactured nowadays for us overseas. So in Asia, those full containers come over, they're empty, they're coming back with all the recyclables into the Asian markets. And so there's that flow. Like I said, about $55 to $60 billion in global trade last I checked. More than 70% of that is in the ferrous steel scrap. The larger portion of the rest is in the non-ferrous, and then we have also plastics, paper, electronic scrap, and things like that as well. So that's kind of what the market looks like on a global basis.
Very interesting. And which are some of the industries and countries which are contributing to this entire trade play the most?
The biggest ones, of course, the U.S. is one of the largest because of its size.
Sure.
But if you look at Europe, you can see Europe which is a slightly larger population, similar land mass, also contributing a very large volume of exports into Asia. Those are the two predominant regions, if you had to put those like into two large areas. And on the importing side, by far, well, even until recently, China was out of the picture for a while, and still the strongest countries have continued to be India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Indonesia. UAE is heavily involved, but more in the trading side, I would say. But they're a key player. But on the volume side, the consumption side, by far our largest markets for our business are India and Pakistan primarily.
Very interesting. When it comes to recyclables, it's a very, very complex area, right? There are a lot of policies around it. There are environmental priorities. So it's an extremely, and there is also a lot of vested interest, right? With the nature of the industry, the way it is, right? And especially across developing countries, right? What are some of the problems associated with the global trades and metal industry, right? If you could give us a sense of that.
Well, I mean, what's really left nowadays. So I guess there's a couple of factors. I think it really starts from the fact that companies are dealing across international boundaries, first of all, right? So you can think of it this way. I mean, typically trade is done at a distance. So they're thousands of miles apart from each other, the supplier and the buyer. And you do see that people take advantage of that distance. It's not only a distance in terms of miles or space, it's also distance in terms of culture. It's a difference in terms of court systems for legal disputes, et cetera. So that's kind of what our main focus is. So that we're trying to solve these kind of last remaining problems in the recyclable space, which deal with trade. And those are problems with just outright fraud, for one thing, where people are actually entering into the business with intention to cheat and defraud another individual. That's a very it's a rare event, but when it happens, it's huge. It's very detrimental. It creates a lot of fear in the market. But there are a lot of other issues that we also see that we're working to solve as well, which are just related to just unfair trading behavior in general. Just taking advantage of differences. And we've learned it's to me it's a bit insane, but if we know that there's a lot of money lost under the $100,000 mark, because it's typically the case that people will not go to a foreign country to try to even recover their money if it's not approaching 100,000. So we see that means that thousands of instances a year of kind of unfair trading is going on, and these are the things that really are creating a lot of friction in a market that should be working just like any other good market globally. So that is
very interesting, Chris. Chris, what is what is that rate of delinquency? I mean, if you can get a broader sense of that, right? And I understand this, right? When you talk to people in trade, and especially in metal trade, there's this huge risk that people run of buying from or selling to people that they don't know, right? How big is this, right? How big is the delinquency market?
Oh yeah. So we've run numbers on this several times, and the actual numbers that we've come up with vary from $200 million to $500 million a year in losses. It's hard to actually put a big figure. I mean, you can't put an exact figure on it because you have to do a lot of extrapolation, but it's very clearly much greater than $200 million a year, and that's 100 for us. It's 100% certain. So that's a big amount of friction in a global market, and when it impacts I think the biggest factor here is the fear that it creates, or the concern, the need to watch those costs, because margins in our business, they're, you know, they're in single digit percentage points. So 3-4% is a really nice margin. You can't afford to lose $100,000 on a trade of, you know, of 500,000, for example. So it creates a lot of concern, which creates distrust, which makes it hard for deals to become to get consummated. So yeah, this is what we see a lot of, unfortunately.
Very interesting. You know, Chris, before I dive into the specifics, right, and I'm actually very, very keen to discuss some of these specifics with you. It's a
Sure.
very interesting product that you built. You know, but before that, you know, how did TradeFox happen to you, right?
Mm.
You know, is this something that you've been doing? So you were part of the global trade
Yep.
play already before
Yep.
this happened, something that you experienced. What brought you to do, or what made you do TradeFox?
Exactly. Yes. No. Oh, so I've been in the recycling industry for 25 years already.
Okay.
So I've even in my first business that I started back in '97, I noticed problems with where companies that I was working for, was I was advising them for implementing recycling programs. I saw cheating and problems that were
Right.
going on. So I've been exposed to this for quite a long time. You know, fast forward many years later, I got into the import export side of things myself and experienced
Mhm.
firsthand significant losses as a trader. And essentially what happened was that, you know, the urge was basically ignited, you know, you know, within me to try to do something about it. And, you know,
Right.
having had a tech company previously, I started looking at ways, well, how can we use the transparency of technology to solve those problems? Because, you know, we lost in our business over $150,000 in one single year. It was very detrimental to a small trading company. And I knew I'd met so many people around me that were also buying and selling recyclables, and they were all, everybody has a story. And so I said, let's do something about it. So that kind of ignited the fire, began the quest back in 2011, started the company 2012.
That is that is very interesting. Chris, can you run me through the product? You know, in terms of how it works, right?
Mhm.
So, for example, you know, is this something which is very absolute in form? Is this something which gives you a closer proximity to saying that, you know, this could be a good deal or a bad deal? You know, how absolute is the product, right? How sharply is the product done, right?
Got it.
You know, what is the rate of, say, for example, success in identifying a good trade and a bad trade?
Yeah. So what we do is we basically, the reputation hangs on the company essentially, right? So we're trying to identify companies and what their standard practices are and how they do business. And so in order to do that, you need to look at trade. You need to look at the volumes of trades, how much business is going on with that company, with other trading partners. We basically analyze that import export information. We get about maybe half of the global trade in our database every year through our sources. So we purchase data and we analyze the imports and exports. Look for trends, look for changing partners too often. We try to identify companies that might be causing problems, and then we go deeper into that by essentially making calls, talking to buyers and sellers, getting these companies involved themselves. Because actually, our product, which is already quite very valuable, it's a very good guide. It only is going to become even more perfect, if you will, or more razor sharp as a tool as we get more and more companies providing that information
Right.
for us. So what we essentially do now is you know, we've already got a product with 140,000 companies in it. We have about 25,000 companies that we have trade data on, which is quite significant. 2 million trades almost in our system. So we're still in a startup phase, but we're now at a point where we're starting the scale up phase, to be honest. And we're now just working to expand that. So to answer your question, you can use our product right now to get very good ideas on which companies can be trusted, which companies cannot be trusted. There's still a lot of gray area in the middle where we might not have the data that we want to have yet. But but if you're looking for like a top 50 here and there, you know, of companies that are top at you know, have the top reputations for buying and selling in a certain region of a certain product, we have that functionality already. It's just something that we're working to improve steadily.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Chris, is this transactional data that you're talking about? Is this foundational data, right?
It is.
Because a lot of these companies, and especially metals, which is a large part of your play, right, is an extremely complex commodity, right?
Yep.
You know, any economy going through a tough time, the first thing that gets hit is basically the metal pricing, and you know, and so on and so forth, right?
Yep.
And
Very
traders in it,
volatile.
right? So is this transactional data that you're talking about? Is this foundational data, which is, the organization, the company, its fundamentals, its cash reserves, all of that, right? So is this like a combination of
It's
the
a
two
combination. It's a combination. So we pull data from credit reporting agencies that we partner with or that we purchase data from on one level, so we get ideas about annual revenue, and also credit. We can pull some credit information as well if we see companies that are even more risky. There's some automation behind that in order to kind of look deeper. But on the surface, we get a lot of like just what we call firmographic data about it, information that you might have in a credit report, but we look at it under a different lens. We're not looking for specifically at what credit reports are about, because that's what credit reports do. We're looking within that data for signs that a company is going to be trustworthy and reliable. But then we add to that the import-export transactional data that you spoke about. That's the 2 million, almost 2 million trades that we have.
Right.
That's very important for us because we can learn a lot by studying that data as well. But I think the most important piece of all is the feedback that we get from our members. So we have like 4,500 members now, member companies. And it's that information that they say, hey, is this company trustworthy or not? On a scale of 1 to 5. That's a very simple question. A lot of people answer. Right. And then we get down to the transactions themselves, and we talk to the buyer and the seller, which we've confirmed are buying and selling from each other. And their opinion is actually the most important thing of all, because if you can tell me, give me 5 different companies that trade with one supplier, and this is the average score, this is what those 5 say, I know that I'm very safe in dealing with that company. So these are the kind of the 3 compartments of information that we aggregate and bring together in order to create a product that you can use.
Very interesting. And what is the frequency of this, right? I mean, is this like on a quarterly basis? Do you evaluate this data? Do you go at it on a half-yearly basis? How dynamic is that process?
It's fully automated. So basically, we pull data in from different agencies in different times. So there's refreshes on the information from the credit bureau systems from time to time. The import-export information, some comes in monthly, some comes in daily. So just however, every time that there's a bit more information, we also have a system for allowing companies to report their problematic trades, so unfair trades, which we then review, have a committee or a panel look at, and then we decide if it's an actual problem. That information is also instantly then goes into the system and updates the score. So you have like a lot. Anytime we get any bit of new information that needs to be looked at, then the scoring algorithm runs through all that data again and rescores that company. So it's pretty instant.
That is amazing, right? I mean, I've been a banker. I've operated in the commodities market. I understand how large a gap this is, and I think what you're trying to solve is phenomenal, right? Chris, which are some of the key economies that you work in, right? And I would love to know more about some of the specific challenges that you come across. For example, India, for that matter, right, is a very, very large economy, right? It's right. Part of a significant player in the global trade play, right? Also, when it comes to recyclables, unfortunately, it's a very, very fragmented ecosystem when it comes to information, right? So you have a lot of information, but a lot of that information is not structured. Second, a lot of that information is in silos, right? Right. Give us a sense of, at TradeFox, the economies that you work in and the complexities that are involved in the regional level.
Yeah, so I mean, I think you really, the way you describe that is when speaking about India specifically, is the way that we see the entire world when it comes to all this information, because there are silos of information everywhere. Right. So every country and every country has its own silos within, and then also the information in every country is its own as well a lot of times. So we work to bring that information in so that we can create a transparent level playing field for everyone. And, there's a lot of confidential information that we handle. So we have to be very respectful about the sources of that information. We also have to be respectful about we have restrictions on what we can share and how much we can show because of competitive reasons. But I think the most important thing for us is, give us the trade data, give us your credit information data, give us this access to data so that we can run our scoring algorithm through this so that we can keep these people that are trying to do a legitimate business warned if they're about to get into trouble. And we can also help the companies with integrity find each other, which I think is really the most important thing. A lot of people focus on the negative side of it, but we want to try to bring all this data together to try to promote the companies that trade with integrity, because these guys, to do business the right way, it costs real money. You need to be rewarded for it. And if you're more trustworthy, you're going to make more money. So we really like to focus on that side. Lots of silos that have to be brought together to make it happen.
I can imagine, right? when you're building a solution, right? It's you have many stakeholders, right? And I think while you are trying to do that, I think that the complexity is 10x, right?
Yep.
Is how I see it, right? Because you really cannot, define who's going to trade where, right? And which is an opportunity coming whose way, right? Plus the policy makers and and so many other complexities that are there, right?
Right.
Um, you know, take me through the consumer's journey, right? And help me understand how have you been able to, bring in all these stakeholders together, right, at a
Mm.
product level.
So the way we kind of break up the stakeholders from the market perspective is we break them up by their function within the market.
Mhm.
That's our way of trying to make sense of all the thousands and thousands of companies that work with each other. We
Sure.
break them into categories of producers, so the companies that make scrap, the ones that buy, the ones that trade scrap, which could be buyers and sellers, would be both buyers and sellers, facilitating market transactions. And then we look at the importer, which is the consumer, the factories themselves. So from the consumer perspective, they're the ones that actually experience most of the financial loss. And so
Mhm.
our product it's a game changer for buyers because it allows them to avoid risk. But it turns out that it's a big game changer for the suppliers also, because it allows these companies that are importing, that are consuming the material, to be able to find the good companies that otherwise were kind of hidden behind other, either just because the market's big in general, or it could be hidden behind other companies. We allow them to find those companies to trade with directly, and I think that makes a big difference. So yeah, again, it comes down to the concern, the fear that is created by the massive losses that buyers experience. When we can
Right.
remove that, then it makes it better for the consumer.
Interesting. Chris, what would be the cumulative impact of of this product, right? Broader impact that the product would have created, right? So, for example, it could have saved X number of traders from Y number of say bad trades.
Yeah.
Have you had the chance to sort of evaluate that, as a company?
Yeah, we've not. I mean, we're just not at that level of scale yet. We can actually
Okay.
put real numbers on it. I do know the size of the problem, as we talked about earlier. We'd love to be able to gauge the impact. But I mean, I know of stories. Of course, we get feedback, and every once in a while, people will speak up and say, "Hey, you really saved me, from dealing with a very bad company." But the thing
Right.
is, we don't know how much they would have lost, right? So they don't either necessarily, I don't, so those details are hard to really put together. So one day I hope to be able to talk to that. But I think maybe
Right.
a better way to be able to report on that would be able to say that these many transactions were facilitated safely through
Fair
our
enough.
platform. And we
Right.
have another side that also has to do with the capital recovery for this lost money that companies do end up losing to unfair trading practices. And
Very
that's
interesting.
something we're building up as well. So that probably gives us a little more of a clear understanding, and as it develops, we'll understand even more clearly the level of losses that are out there. And I think maybe that's another thing to look at, that when a couple of years we'll be able to look back and say, hey, we've helped companies recover several million or millions of dollars. And that's our goal. We really want
That
to
is
save the money, and we also help them get it back if they've lost it.
That is very interesting, right? Is that an insurance product? Is that a recovery mechanism that you're putting together? Tell us a little more. I mean, if you can, it'll be
Yeah,
nice
yeah,
to
for
know a
sure.
little more about that.
Absolutely. About right here was capital recovery. That is a collections and recovery element of our business. And essentially what we have is a network of 4,500 companies, right? And these companies that are in our system, they are, our members. We want to keep them advised of any kind of problematic situations that develop. So certainly it's a very large peer network of companies that buy and sell recyclables. So
Sure.
a lot of what we're noticing is that, look, there's always two sides to every story, and sometimes things look very clear that somebody's being, treated unfairly. And sometimes there's 10%, 90%, 50-50, so we're not here to try to work out those details. We're just trying to help them, figure out to recover the losses that we can.
Right.
Yeah, so that's that product. The insurance piece is something that we're working on. We're working with a large commercial credit insurance agency. We are about, probably I would say, maybe a year away from being able to fully integrate them into our platform to cover these risks that are currently uninsurable.
Right.
That's a separate plugin we'll bring in, but I would love to see that in 6 months. But that normally means it's probably a year away before we get it plugged in.
Very interesting. Is trade finance also part of the play?
Sorry.
I'm saying, is trade financing also part of the play? Is financing also part of the play?
Financing itself, yes, it will become part of it in the long run. Yeah, we have a plan for that as well. So there are, our industry is very it's very risky for banks. And the
Right.
reason it's risky is because banks want to put money in and get it back out, and it's predictable. It needs to be, not only needs to always come back with interest, but it also should come back on time.
Right.
And when you have situations where containers are getting stuck in customs, or problems that erupt because of volatile markets, et cetera, banks are fearful of this industry, and rightfully so.
Sure.
So the cost of money is very high. So yes, we are looking at a product to bring into the market, which is a crypto-backed product, which is we're looking at right now, actually, because we see a huge market out there for investors to come in to back up global trade, essentially, to allow that money to come in at a relatively high rate of return, but also spread the losses amongst a larger group of people while we
Right.
reinforce the reduction of the losses. So these two products tie together just like a credit report would also with a bank. If we can fix these last problems and get the insurance in place, then we reduce the risk for the finance side as well. And instead of waiting for the banks to show up to the party, we thought we'll go ahead and just bring in the private investors and bring in a good DeFi product as well.
Right. So what I realize is when I hear you, I think what I realize is that the credit rating system is just the first step, right? I think there's so much
Yep,
more
that's true.
which is still to come up, right? And I think insurance is definitely the natural corollary,
Yeah.
to what you're doing, and given the data that there's so much of data that you have, and and that is improving by the day, it's going to be so much more easier for you to price policies, right? And I think and that's going to
Yep.
be a massive filler, right, for the global
Yep.
recyclable trades industry,
Yep.
that as a whole. Chris, I want to understand, as an entrepreneur, right, what are some of the challenges that you
Mm,
faced while you were continuing to sort of build this product, right? Given that it's not an easy ecosystem to crack, right? What are some of those challenges that you faced, right, and how did you tackle them? And I ask this for the aspirants, right, who are trying to build complex solutions. This might just
yeah.
come in as as a bit of motivation, right? And I'm
Yeah.
purely coming from there.
Understood. Well, that's an interesting question. And I think we've been at this for 9 years. So we've been starting up a company for 9 years.
Right.
That means 9 years of continuously experimenting, learning, trying, changing. We've actually pivoted our entire model away from a marketplace, which we developed, into a business intelligence product. We took it, we've
Sure.
taken an entire different approach, which we did after about 4 years in.
Right.
And the thing is, like, this, the message, or the need is the same. So we know our goal is to solve these problems, to take the risk out of the market. The problem is very complicated because it involves a lot of elements, such as things that we aren't necessarily intending to do ourselves, such as
Right.
allowing people to hedge pricing, or to getting into the pricing side of things, which causes these problems. Insurance, we're not becoming an insurance company, but you need insurance for certain things that are uninsurable right now. So we have basically just kind of continuously persisted and worked with the same vision in mind. Also working with a market that is, in all fairness, can be very reluctant at times to adopt a new technology. Because why? Because they've learned to make great money in transparent markets. So,
Right.
there's a very valid point. People don't want to make it easier for the competitors, and I can completely understand that. But so we kind of, we twist and turn, and we try to, we talk to our customers a lot. And I think that's the most important thing, is as you show them this or that, or what about, and you put ideas out and you build products and you get reactions, and you start to learn, and you learn more, you learn your customer better and better over time. And that's just been what we've been working on. We've been working on that for 9 years. We're at a point right now where we're on the verge of breaking out finally, which is amazing, because
Right.
without the persistence, without the investors that we have behind us, we could have never gotten here. It's a very tough nut to crack. What we're doing is not easy. It's very complicated, but persistence is absolutely the secret to the success of anything like this.
Awesome. Chris, how's been Asia for you, right? I think what I hear from your colleagues in India is that Asia is the
Mm,
new focus, right? You've been at it, but I think
yep.
the aspiration is to very quickly double and triple the business, in a matter of months, right?
Yep.
Is that correct?
Exactly. that is 100% correct. That's because it's where the buyers are, right? And as
Right.
I pointed out earlier, they're the ones that are acutely aware of the problem. They're the ones that really lose the big money, and they have to self-insure themselves. So there's nobody to cover these losses.
Right.
So our product, we said let's go help the guys that need the help, most first. They're the ones that are most open. They want to share the information. They're really happy about what we're doing. So we do focus on the Asian market. The intention, of course, is that we'll have players, on both sides of the deal. But our big scale up movement is in Asia right now. That's our growth area for the next 1 to 2 years for sure.
And within Asia, which is the economy that you're going, which is something that suits your, criteria, right? In terms of
Yeah,
getting
India and
the
Pakistan. Well, without question, India and Pakistan. I mean, those are our two big markets. Those the two countries gobble up the majority of all the ferrous scrap, and so the next targets would be South Korea, Taiwan. Those
right.
are areas of interest in Indonesia. But India specifically and Pakistan are the markets that have made our business what it is because of the need for the product is so real. There's so many problems there. What we do resonates with people there, and so that's why we have one of our offices located right in India, and we've
Right.
also have one of our founding members is in Pakistan. So these are our key areas because it's also kind of the parts of Asia that we know the best. We have the most experience here as well. So it's kind of a strategy set also out of practicality as well.
Uh, how's been the product acceptance, right? I mean, this is a fairly complex product, right? People understand all these
Yeah.
things. People understand, banking products, but I think what you're trying to build is something which is it's a product which is somewhere in the middle, right?
Yeah.
How difficult is it to sort of communicate what the product entails?
Yeah, it is a big challenge. It always has been. And I would, like to point out that when I started trading, which was the 6 years prior to starting this company, we
Right.
were doing import and export. We were dealing with primarily India and Pakistan. Those were our import markets. People had Blackberries, and it was, that was like the smartphone of the era, and so like actually technology is like sped up so rapidly over those
Sure.
last say 11 or was it 15 years now. And so we've been kind of paddling out there, waiting on the wave to come, and meanwhile learning about what it is that that our customers are willing to buy and what they will accept and what they're willing to contribute.
Right.
And one of our biggest challenges is communicating the value of the product to people that don't understand technology that well, because we're
Right.
dealing with people that are factory owners, for example. I mean, that's
Sure.
it's the kids that get it better, right? So
Right.
like the technology play. But I mean, okay, that's changed now. It has changed very rapidly recently. And we're seeing now a pretty massive push towards the adaptation of technology. It's more about, I guess it took a time for the technology, like the value of it to come online and to become like completely understandable by the masses. And then another push need to happen to make people say, okay, maybe we need to go and look into this more. So, but yeah, I mean, it's always been a challenge. It's also, there's multiple languages as well that we have to deal with in communicating that. So, what you want to have is you want to reach a point to where friends are telling friends are telling friends. Then you have the work done from referrals, and that's something that every tech company looks forward to. One day is that
Interesting.
scalability that you get from referrals.
What are some of those things that you're doing on the ground to sort of get crack the customer, right? How are you creating that awareness?
So what we're doing is so in our markets in India and Pakistan specifically, which is our current focus, we have teams there which are gathering data and information and also helping us with the sales of the product as well.
Okay.
So we use the local talent for that, to help us reach the local market. I think it's very important because people do business with people that they identify with and understand, right? So English can be a challenging language for some people. Just in general, the communication can be, it's a second language to Indian, to most of us basically, right? So so we feel like it's best to reach out in the local language with local people, and also let them know that there's someone there that they can trust also on a local basis to take care of the problems when they erupt. I think that's really important. So that's kind of how our strategy is built.
That is amazing, and that's I think some of the points that you highlighted, right? I think is that people identify with people from the regions, right? I think that's just so much more important, right? And while you say that, I can, in my mind, I can think of companies who've gone grossly wrong in terms of trying to tackle buckets, right? I think those smaller, softer complexities are very important to tackle in the right way, right?
Yep.
And I think that's a very strong point that you made. Chris, I think what you're creating is global, right? A lot of founders, a lot of startup, entrepreneurs, look land up looking inward, right? What are your 2 cents, right? In terms of how should they go about building for a global audience?
Yeah. So, it's
How important is
our
that?
business is about. Yeah, well, it depends on the business model, right? I mean, we
Right.
are global by default because our largest value is that the further you are from somebody else, the more valuable we are. So we had to start cracking that, kind of
Sure.
egg from that angle,
Right.
basically. So we started in with the challenge right from the beginning. A lot of companies like prove it out locally, and then they go quickly and expand, into foreign markets. But then the
Right.
trick normally is if you're not based in the U.S., then if you're a European company, for example, the skip is normally straight to the US to scale it out because you've got one big homogeneous market over there of slightly more risky, buyers and, customers as opposed to European markets, for example.
Right.
And you don't then have to worry about having all these individual representatives, like one in France, one in Germany, et cetera, right? All these different cultures in Europe. That's pretty problematic for a European startup, which is what we are, right?
Right.
But see, we started right from the beginning as being global by default. So then you
Right.
immediately start in with knowing that identify the markets that you're going to work with, make sure you've got local talent, either at least in touch with the customers. Make sure your marketing and any kind of messaging is put in the right language and worded the right way. Make sure you got representation in those markets, and then you just have to grow that out slowly. That's all you can do. And so we go for the largest markets with the biggest volume, where for us, and then we work our way back down. So it's very deliberate. The manner that we're expanding it out is we go for the big areas, and then we'll trickle down to the smaller, smaller countries, smaller trading partner pairs. That's the way we look at it.
Very interesting. Chris, my last question, two points that you would want to sort of highlight, for founders who are fighting it out, and in a challenging ecosystem, right? So your two cents on that and your advice on that.
So I think the first most important thing is to just stick with it. Like you of course you're doing it already because you have a mission, you have a reason. Normally the problem you're trying to solve is genuine, and you've probably experienced yourself if you're a founder of a company, most likely. So then just stay with it, stay persistent, don't give up, just keep on going, and just keep explaining what you're doing to others, to find investors, keep talking, keep walking the walk, and keep moving forward. Don't expect anything to happen overnight. Don't give up, because it won't happen overnight. Normally these overnight success stories normally take years to make. So I think that's pretty much the biggest point I'd like to have. I think persistence is the greatest power that you can have as a founder, bottom line.
Chris, it was a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you for for this interaction. While I've loved to know about what you're building, and it's so much more exciting. I mean, I come from the world of finance, and I understand what you're doing has been a product that is missed. That was missing from the market, right? That was missing from the offering, right? What has existed is a traditional ecosystem, of bank guarantees and LCs and so on and so forth, right? But I think what was missing was cross-border credit rating and integrity mechanism, right? And I think that's essentially what you're trying to build, with TradePox, right? And it's amazing, right? It's extremely exciting, the possibility that you're building an insurance product on top of it, that or the possibility of having a trade finance product on top of it is so much more exciting, right? And the fact that you're blending it with crypto, and a peer-to-peer participation play, I think is just so much more exciting, right? So yeah, it's been a fantastic discussion, Chris. Thank you for taking the time out. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Yeah, same here. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and wish you all the very best for your journey across Asia.
Same to you. Take care. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye bye. Thanks, Chris.